This video is going to give you everything you need to score that band 9 on the IELTS listening exam, so keep watching. Hi guys, my name is Ali Asif, and if you're new to the channel, consider pressing the subscribe button. We upload videos every week, and this week we're going to be covering the IELTS examination. Everything you need to know to get that awesome score you need for your test. So first things first, just to make sure that everybody has a clear foundation, we're going to go over some basic information about the IELTS listening exam, followed by all the tips and tricks necessary. I've sliced the video up, so if you want to skip forward, you can. So the IELTS listening exam is the same for IELTS Academic as well as IELTS General. So if you're considering giving any of the exams, this video is going to be helpful regardless. The IELTS listening exam is 30 minutes in total, and you have 40 questions divided into 4 sections. So you can average around 10 questions per section. Now let's talk about the type of questions before we get into the necessary tips and tricks. So the first type of question that you might encounter in the exam is the form completion question. This usually boils down to noting down an address, to a telephone number, maybe a fax address, things of that sort. My advice to you would be to pay attention to the structure of the form, and that's going to help you think about the conversation in a chronological order so you know when your answers are going to show up and what you're going to be looking for. The next sort of question you're going to have to encounter is the table completion question, where the information is going to be split up in the form of a table. Again, paying attention to the structure of the table is going to be greatly helpful. And understand this, that the questions and their answers come in chronological order. So it's very unlikely that you're going to get the 5th answer in the first statement. It's usually going to go down statement by statement. So it's easy for you to understand where your answers may lie in the statements. The third type of question you are going to encounter is the sentence completion question. Now this is where it gets a little tricky, because the question asks you to write no more than 1 word or 2 words or numbers in this case. So what you really have to pay attention to is the fact that your statement must make grammatical sense. The next type of question you're going to encounter is the note completion question. This is similar to the sentence completion structure. However, the problem will be presented to you in the form of notes, and usually they ask you to write no more than 1 word in order to answer the question. As the IELTS test progresses, the questions tend to get harder. Section 1 is comparatively much easier as opposed to Section 4. And the question types we're going to discuss below are normally encountered in Section 3 and 4. The next one is summary completion. Over here, the statement is presented in the form of a summary where you must fill in the blank to make the accurate grammatical sense of the statement. After that, we have map labeling. This is an illustration of a map or maybe some sort of diagram which you have to accurately depict. The statement is going to explain where things lie, and you'll need to understand the diagram before the statement starts. And finally, we have diagram and flowchart labeling. In this case, there is again going to be a form of an illustration of a graph, or let's say a flowchart, where some bits of the information will be missing. And that's exactly what you'll need to listen for when attempting these type of questions. So now that we've covered the types of questions you might encounter in the exam, here are some of the tips and tricks you'll need in order to get that band 9. Tip number 1, read the question very carefully. Now there are intricate details within the question that you must understand before listening for the answers. Tip number 2 is focusing on your spellings. It does not matter if you were able to find the right answer if you weren't able to spell it right. And if there is some sort of spelling mistake, you will not get the mark for that specific question. Now this tip is essential. If you cannot understand the answer of a certain question, or if you missed it, I would highly recommend that you keep moving forward and listen for the rest of the answers, because if you were to stick back and think about the answer that you weren't able to catch, you might miss further questions coming later on in the exam. This one is just as important as the rest of the tips. When you're taking the IELTS listening exam on the computer-based test, they give you a minute to review your answer. In my personal opinion, you should utilize that minute to go to the next section and read the questions first. That way, when that question starts, you'll know what's the information that you're looking for. Another major tip is to understand the situation of the question. Most of the times in IELTS listening, you'll have multiple people talking and your answer lies within it. Now, the question is going to indicate who's the person that's going to answer your question. Let's suppose we're talking about a manager who said something to his staff, and the entire listening bit of it consists of one manager and 4 employees. Now, there is a very high probability that the answer is going to come from the manager himself or herself. So listen to that and read that carefully. Last and most important thing to do before the IELTS listening exam is to watch a bunch of English shows. And when I say English, I mean British English. Most of the times the accents are tough to understand. People talk fast. They talk in a certain way, which might not be as audible as one may think. So I would recommend going on to Netflix and watching some British show. My recommendation would be to watch The English Game if you're a football fan, or Crown is a great example of a British show. A word of caution for all the IELTS test taker is do not simply go on Google and start searching for tests that you can take in order to test yourself, because the tests aren't an accurate image of what the actual examination is going to be like. So that might throw you off and might discourage you when it comes to scoring it, because a lot of answers are just plain out wrong, which you can find in the comment section below. But people don't usually go to that section. They just see their marks and then they move forward to the next. That being said, I've linked an IELTS test that I've vetted myself personally up here somewhere, and I'll add the info card here so you can check that out. I would highly recommend that you apply all the tricks you've learned here to that, and hopefully if you keep all of this in mind, there is no reason at all that you won't be able to score a band 9 on the IELTS listening exam. So that wraps it up for today's video. The next thing we're going to discuss is the IELTS reading exam, and I'll see you then. Thanks.